mortal?
Depends on your understanding of the term. Indeed, I cannot be killed. But it's not at all what folk imagine. Not dying does not mean eternally living your life to the full.
So it's a curse?
A curse? No, wouldn't call it that. I'll put it this way. You must be careful what you wish for, lest your wish be granted. For there are consequences.
Hello and welcome to another Witcher lore video where we dive into the mysteries of the world of The Witcher to provide you with more in-depth understanding of this world. This is my first character lore video and it's about none other than Olgierd Von Everec. I was always fascinated by this character, so I devoted this video to him, a man of mystery, whose secrets we're gonna unravel in this video, because that's what we do in lore videos. So without further ado, let's get into it. The story of Olgierd wasn't always sad. He grew up in a noble, wealthy Redanian family with his younger brother, Vladimir. Olgierd proved to be a bright boy. He learned how to read, ride a horse and fight with saber. And he was always better than his brother Vladimir in every aspect, which according to Gunter Odin made Vladimir jealous, although he truly loved his brother. Olgierd grew to love art. This passion did not leave him, even when his heart turned into a stone. When Olgierd became an adult, he and his brother didn't follow family's business. In fact, they did the opposite. Instead of looking after their large family estate, he formed a gang and started raiding Velen and Temeria. He was so good at it and soon became famous, so that his mere name made people shiver. Not something you would expect a noble art lover to do. During this time, Olgierd fell in love with a woman called Iris. She loved him too. The families talked and they became betrothed. Everything was going swimmingly until the tables turned. The family's luck ran out when they faced financial troubles, bad investment, and poor harvest. Horst Borsadi, one of the most hated rascals, owned their debts, demanded immediate payment or he would take everything they had, including their home. Olgierd pleaded for weeks' time, but Horst was ruthless and took over the Von Everec estate and all their possessions, leaving them with nothing. Iris's parents decided that Olgierd, who no longer belonged to the upper class, was not a suitable match for their daughter and arranged for her to marry an Ophiri prince. Olgierd, who still loved Iris, asked her to run away with him, but Iris did not want to abandon her family, so they had no other option. Olgierd, devastated by losing his beloved and everything else, wished that the prince would become a beast. Not knowing the power of his words, unwittingly cursed the prince, transforming him into a huge frog. So far, it was a background of Olgierd's story. Now we reach the point where questions arise, especially regarding Olgierd and Master Mirrors. Like, how many wishes Olgierd had? Why he still had more wishes after Gunter, in his own twisted way, had granted 2 before? Why did Geralt have to get involved and Gunter himself didn't take action? How exactly their contract was, and some more. Worry not, I'll answer them one by one in this video. So, when Olgierd lost the love of his life, Iris, he cursed her fiancé, the prince, and turned him into a toad. Now, with him out of the picture, all he needed was to restore his wealth so he could take her hand again. As we know by now, Olgierd was not a typical person. The method he chose to restore his family's wealth was not normal either. He made a deal with Gunter Odin, though it is not obvious if he did it through studying G.O.D, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, which is basically the art of summoning demons from other dimensions, or Gunter presented himself to him like he did to Geralt and made an offer he couldn't refuse. But we know that Olgierd ultimately studied G.O.D to break his contract with Gunter, but more on that later. Anyways, he met Gunter and uttered his wishes, and this is where we see Olgierd's brilliance and realize how smart he is. He was so good that Gunther became desperate for taking his soul, and there aren't many characters out there who can do that to Gunther, the evil himself. This angered Master Mirrors, and we can know that through a conversation he has with Geralt.
What did he do to you?
Before I reveal this, I'd like to make one thing very clear. Olgierd Von Everec did willfully and maliciously conspire to cause you to kill a man who might have been cured. Had I not intervened, you would have lost your head for this. Do you know why he did it? Because he's a degenerate monster in human flesh who feeds on the pain and suffering of others.
Well, you clearly don't like him. What did he do to you?
He and I made a pact. A pact under which I called on my many talents and associates to give him what he desired. And now the time's come to pay. Yet, he shirks his obligation.
But what did Olgierd do? Olgierd either had 2 contracts with Odin or 1 two-parted contract, but it doesn't really matter. Olgierd wished to restore his family's wealth and to live like there is no tomorrow. For this, Gunther wanted him to sacrifice a person he loved. Olgierd only loved Iris and his brother. He chose Vladimir, and the next day he died during a raid. Gunther restored his wealth, and for the second part, to live like there is no tomorrow, Gunther accomplished this by making Olgierd immortal, so that he need not fear death, and by turning Olgierd's heart into a stone, so that he felt no fear or remorse for any of his actions, essentially making Olgierd free to do anything, free to live like there is no tomorrow. To live like there is no tomorrow, you have to die first. Your emotions have to be turned off, so you'll do what you want, to who you want, and after doing that, you feel no consequences. This is how Gunther saw to live like there is no tomorrow is. Yet it was not what Olgierd wanted. He wanted to live happily with Iris without a worry in the world. Was Gunther really wrong? Well, that's a philosophical question depending on how you see it. With his wishes being granted, Olgierd finally married Iris, yet their happiness was short-lived. Olgierd, with the heart of stone, could not feel the joy of being with his beloved, could not love her, he only knew he should. Years began to pass and Olgierd's marriage began to fall apart. Realizing what had happened, with his wishes, he began to practice G.O.D to try resummoning Gunther to end their pact. But nothing worked. As he pushed Iris further and further away, it eventually got to the point that Iris brought her father in one day to end their marriage. Olgierd, now completely devoid of feelings, get into an argument with Iris's father and shout him against a stone pillar, instantly killing him and causing Iris to hate him. Olgierd's life was over at this point. He left Iris as he saw that was only hurting her. Iris died soon afterwards, out of grief and loneliness. Despite all this, the second part of Olgierd's pact with Gunther is where we see how smart Olgierd really was, and how he angered Gunther. The price of the second part was Olgierd's soul, yet he was not going to make it easy for Gunther to take it. His conditions were that he gets 3 more wishes, and Gunther himself could not grant it. He had to give this task to someone else, a proxy, and if there was someone who could do the impossible and grant Olgierd's 3 remaining wishes, for Gunther to take his soul, they had to stand on the moon. This was pretty impossible to achieve. Although ultimately Gunther outsmarted him, and Geralt achieved the impossible by granting his wishes, we have to realize that Olgierd was only human, and it took the famous White Wolf and the evil himself to take him down. And we can't deny that it was a hard challenge for Gunther. The rest of his interesting story after Iris' death plays out during the game. If you want to know it, however, I read the journal entry to make his fate clear.
To this day, I do not know what caused Geralt to inquire after the contract posted by Olgierd Von Everec, that famed Witcher curiosity. An ominously light coin pouch, or perhaps it was some other, more nefarious force. Whatever the impulse, Geralt decided to visit the locally infamous nobleman and pursue the bounty on the sewer monster. From their very first encounter, Geralt knew Olgierd was a unique character. He led an informal band who worshipped the ground he walked on, though he clearly was of a different sort than they educated. A lover of art and an adherent to a certain noble code. Yet Geralt also perceived something indefinable within the man. Something years later he would call a void crying out to be filled. Geralt later returned to the estate where he'd first met Olgierd and his band, and found the place in flames. He soon learned the property did not in fact belong to Olgierd, but had merely been commandeered by the Ataman and his men, who then went a touch overboard in their carousing. Olgierd did not begrudge them their pyrotechnic over-exuberance, but the murder of the manor's lord he considered one cruelty too far and ordered the wrongdoer beheaded. Geralt entered the stage in the middle of this execution. In the tumult that followed, he made a most startling discovery. Olgierd Von Everec was immortal, and immortality was but the start of the surprising revelations about Olgierd. Master Mirror revealed the two had signed a contract. In exchange for regaining his lost status and wealth, Olgierd had promised Mirror something very personal. What exactly, Geralt did not yet know. Before it could be considered complete, and Master Mirror could collect his due, he had to fulfill 3 of Olgierd's wishes. He could not do this personally, however, but needed instead to make use of a proxy as choice for this role. Geralt, who in this way was drawn into a personal settlement between a powerful, immortal nobleman and the mysterious Gauntlered Dim. Upon hearing Geralt would be the one to carry out his requests, Olgierd wasted no time and issued him his first challenges. To bring him the house of Maximilian Borsodi, and to show his brother Vladimir the time of his life. Granting Olgierd's wishes had proven difficult but rewarding, for Geralt now knew a great deal more about the unusual nobleman, and the story that unfolded could have jerked tears from a Cyclops. Once upon a time, Olgierd fell hopelessly in love with Iris, a beautiful young lady from a well-off family. Her parents accepted his proposal of marriage, and all seemed set for a happy ending when a storm of misfortune suddenly broke over the Von Everec family. A chain of bad decisions and a few years of bad harvests had left the once wealthy family deeply in debt. Then the Borsodis purchased this debt, and with their brutal enforcement of its terms, drove the Von Everecs into utter bankruptcy. After this, Iris' parents changed their mind about their daughter's future husband, revoking their approval of Olgierd and betrothing Iris to an Offiary prince who had come to study in Oxenfurt. Out of desperation, Olgierd turned to Master Mirror and soon won back his coin, influence and, most importantly, his betrothed. All seemed well until he discovered his wish's unwanted side effect. His heart was slowly hardening into stone. Now the Witcher was on the verge of bringing the pact between Olgierd and Master Mirror to completion. Did this mean everything would soon be as it once was? Geralt was not so sure. One question kept nagging him. What was that something very personal Gauntlered Dim intended to collect from Olgierd? If Geralt chose to side with Olgierd, once Geralt realised Master Mirror was playing for the highest of stakes, Olgierd Von Everec's soul, he decided he could not sit idly by. Instead, he found a way to cheat the demonic being and win Olgierd back his soul, free from his pact and his heart restored. Olgierd thanked Geralt and gave him his sword, a souvenir which had been in his family for generations, then walked off into the sunset. If Geralt didn't investigate and left Olgierd to his fate, Geralt did not have to wait long to find out what lay at the heart of the contract between Olgierd Von Everec and Gauntlered Dim. In exchange for regaining his family fortune, clearing his name and marrying Iris, Olgierd had agreed to give Master Mirror his soul. Geralt could now only watch as Odim collected his due. Thus ended the sad tale of Olgierd Von Everec, a man who lived as if there was no tomorrow, feasted as if he had never known joy, and loved a love so strong he was willing to surrender his own soul for it.
Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe to see more content like this. Have a good day and goodbye.